Hi friends, welcome back. So today I have an idea. I have been getting some serious fantasy style painting vibes lately, and I just really want to try painting something that I've never painted before. So we're going to paint a dragon. Never done this before. I've already gotten a sketch down on a canvas board. Doing it on a canvas board because I don't trust myself to do it on a full-fledged canvas. I don't want to mess it up. So we're going to do a practice dragon on a canvas board. You and me together. I'm thinking greens and beiges and maybe some browns. I want it to be like a forest dragon. I don't know, like a foresty dragon that would go really well in my Fox and the Fairy series. And if the fox is like this big, then the dragon would be like this big. So he's not super big. Like a nice, small, cute, foresty, green dragon. I think that sounds like fun. And I'm going to take you along for the ride, and we're going to see how it goes. Because like I said, I've never done a dragon before. This could go well, or it could go poorly. I'll show you in a second, but I've never painted anything remotely reptilian before, so it'll be fun, it'll be interesting. We'll see if it turns out okay. Okay, I'm gonna turn the camera, point it down, and record some voiceover while I paint this dragon, and hopefully it comes out good. All right, cool. So let me just start by saying that this sketch was really a challenge for me. I really haven't ever painted anything like a dragon before. I knew it was going to be a challenge, and part of me was up for that challenge, and another part of me really, really wasn't. I tend to like to stay in my lane and not paint things I've never done before. I'll do landscapey things and planty things and more organic shapes like that I've never done before. But for like a focal point, like a character, like a fox or a fairy, or in this case a dragon, I will tend to stick with animals or creatures in general that are similar to ones I've done before. So I have sketched people before, so I'm relatively comfortable doing a fairy. I have sketched foxes and dogs and badgers, so I'm relatively comfortable with those. But I've never done anything remotely reptilian. So doing a dragon was honestly pretty scary, and it took a lot of tries for me to get this sketch to a place where I liked it. And I wasn't even honestly 100% sure that I liked the sketch. I actually ended up sending this to a friend to be like, is this good? Do I need to tweak this, or should I just go ahead and paint it? Because I had been planning on this video. I was like, I'm going to paint a dragon, and I'm going to do it for a video because that'll make me do it. And I'd been wanting to do it, and making it into a YouTube video is a really good motivational tool for me. It's a good way for me to be more focused on the thing that I want to do and actually make myself do it. I do have to have a thing that's like, you have to do this, you have to do X for Y. So doing it for YouTube, I think, was probably the only way that I was going to get myself to do it soon or now. So, and I needed a video for this week, and I had time to do this. So this is what I did. I spent between a half an hour and 45 minutes on the sketch, and then took a break, had some dinner, set up my camera, and painted this. I believe the base green that I used was Hooker's green, and I wanted it to be a foresty dragon, kind of a leafy dragon, and I wasn't loving how the green looked, but then I was like, okay, well, this can be the base color because it's a dragon, so she's going to need to have scales. So I then got out a brown, I can't remember if it was, I think it might have been burnt umber, and I mixed that with the green, and I basically did the exact same shape that I use when I'm making bushes. So it's really a leaf shape more than a scale. And I really liked how this turned out because it looked a little bit more like bark than it did like scales. And because I wanted this dragon to be very heavily like earthy, I thought that worked. I was thinking of making her something of a tree dragon. So, and my thought is that she's not very big. That might help with this too. In my head, my intention is that my usual little red fox will come maybe a little bit lower than hip level for this dragon. So she's not super big. Foxes are pretty small. So she's a relatively small dragon, and my thought was that she could be a dragon that kind of hangs out in the trees and hangs out in the treetops, and maybe you just wouldn't really see her because she's not all that big and she can camouflage herself up in the trees, because she kind of looks a little bit like a tree trunk and a little bit like some leaves, and she's got that very earthy, very natural coloration to her. So I did end up speeding this video up because it took me about 45 minutes, and I wasn't sure that I really wanted to do voiceover for 45 minutes, but this is only 2x. So I think this video is going to end up being about 20 minutes. It took me about 45 to paint this dragon, which I think was really reasonable, especially considering I hadn't ever done anything like this before. And at this point in the painting of it, I'm starting to like find my groove, and I'm really liking how these green kind of bark-like scales are looking. I just think they look fabulous. I was really happy with the colors that I picked. I tend to prefer more tealy colors, so like bluey greens, and so I had kind of a hard time with, I knew that I wanted her to be more of a foresty leafy green, but everything in me was like, but she should be teal. And I kind of had to fight that instinct in me, because for the design that I had in mind for her, she needed to not be teal. But in my heart, I wanted her to be teal. I do absolutely love how she turned out, so I will probably, well, I will maybe make another dragon later on down the line that will be a teal dragon. Maybe that's like a water dragon or something, I don't know. But I do love the color that I picked at the end of it. Like, I think that this turned out really well. I think for what I have in mind and the piece that I am making specifically for this dragon, this works. I should explain that too. I am super inspired, and I have this idea for almost like a cavern kind of thing. Well, more like a ravine. So I have an idea to paint a massive ravine that would have a bunch of plant life and some really cool rocks, and at the bottom of the ravine is a dragon nest and maybe a fairy or something to connect it to the Fox and the Fairy series and make it very clear that they're in the same world. And because I'm working on that piece, and because I really want that to be the next one that I'm like really focusing on, I wanted to make sure that I was going to be okay to actually paint a dragon, because again, I haven't ever done this before. So I wanted to take the time now to just do it on a canvas board, just try it out, make sure that I was going to be okay with it, make sure that it was going to come out okay. And honestly, I am super pleased with how this turned out over time. Even just like looking at it a few days later, it's one of those paintings that I've finished, and then I keep looking at it and going, I painted this? This was painted by me? I did that? Are you sure that was me? Are you sure that wasn't just like somebody else using my hand? But like a video evidence, this is me, those are my hands. See, I've got the compression glove on, and only on one hand. That's definitely me. Those are definitely my fingernails. And sometimes those are my favorite pieces, because I still look at them and I still go, my goodness, I can paint. And if you're at all artistic, I'm sure you have had this same feeling at some point or another as well. And it is kind of a fun feeling because it's very validating. No matter how much other people may validate your art, if you don't find it valid, if you don't find your art beautiful, or you don't think of your art as something that's so cool that's like, how did I do this? It almost doesn't seem valid in your own mind that you do this, or at least that's how it is for me. So the fact that this one came out so well that I keep looking at it, like I painted this yesterday, but as of this video coming out, I would have painted this 4 days ago, and I'm sure this is still happening, but I have it sitting on my coffee table and I just keep looking at it and going, my goodness, it's so pretty. So then this part was funny. So I put on this peachy color because this was the color I had in mind for her underbelly. And I put it on and I was like, ooh, I don't like this color. This is too vibrant of an orange. I think if I had done the teal dragon, I would have actually just really liked this peach. But with her being this more vivid green, I really don't like this shade. So I ended up, I had already put some burnt sienna on my palette, and while I'm putting this color in, I'm going, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, but now I'm committed and I have to put it in because I started. And the gouache that I use is fabulous, and you can put layers over it, but a lot of the time the color will show through underneath. So if you start painting and you put down a color that you don't like, you have to finish putting that color down and you can cover it later, but in a lot of cases that color will still show up at least a little bit. So I was like, how do I fix this? And I ended up mixing some brown and white to make like a super pale brown. And I am covering but not completely. I'm basically doing a wash over that peach with a very, very pale brown. And I didn't really clean my brush, so there's a little bit of the peach still on my brush. And this color is ugly. It is not a pretty color, but it works so well. It, like, to just look at this color, it's like, bleh, that's a gross color. But it's supposed to be like a tree bark color, and tree bark is a gross grayish, brownish, peachish shade. So it really works, and I'm really happy with what I ended up with. Now I'm taking burnt sienna, just straight burnt sienna, and I'm highlighting each of those little plates that mark her underbelly. And I think this just added so much depth to the character too. It turned out so nice. Because it didn't need to be like this super pretty color. It needed to be a super earthy color. So now here I mixed white, burnt sienna, and that peachy shade. And I'm adding some depth and some shadow with those three colors. And here's where I think that it just really starts to come alive. She looks more real. And I think a lot of that is that you can see now where the light is hitting her and where it's not hitting her. And it just, at this point, I'm like, yeah, this dragon is coming along really good. I love how this is looking. Which, again, I was not expecting that. This is my first dragon. I have sketched a dragon once before this, but it was a dragon in flight from a distance, so it almost looked like a cross between a bird and a bat. Nothing super detailed, just like this silhouette of a dragon in flight. And then I went straight into this, and I got this really cool dragon. So then I went back and I mixed the green and the brown to do her claws. And I'm using a little fine liner for this. I know you can't really see the detail of it, but I did like very specifically shape out her claws so that they look very natural. I was, again, very concerned about that because I tend to paint animals that have fur, so I can kind of fudge the feet a little bit. But with the dragon, I couldn't do that. They needed to be more detailed. I know I keep saying this was a challenge, but it was a challenge. Okay, so then I mixed brown with that pale green that I used on the wings. And I did this super wet. And I'm adding this in to make those wings look a little bit more papery, for lack of a better term. So dragon wings are skin, and so they have to kind of move like skin. And the best way to do that I could think of was to add a slightly darker version of that same green. And I think that this actually, again, just made those wings look super realistic by just adding a little bit of brown into that green and just doing that tiny touch of shading. It is amazing to me how much difference you get in a painting by just adding that little bit of shading. I swear, sometimes I love doing the tiny paintings like this because I can just flip them around to whatever angle I need to get the best brushstroke. I, a lot of the time, will paint larger pieces now, which it means that sometimes I have to kind of contort myself into a funky position because I can't as easily move the painting into the spot that I need to get the brushstroke that I want. So I'll contort myself more than I'll move the painting around. But with these little ones, it's so easy. You just move them. It's great. This was one of the things that most inspired me. Was I had this idea of a dragon that had these tree branches for horns. I just thought that would be super cool and make her look a little bit more chill, because I don't want her to be a terrifying dragon. She can be, certainly, as most dragons can, but my series is full of whimsy, so I wanted her to be a very whimsical character. And I think this was honestly the best way for me to do it, was to add something super whimsical, like branches for horns. And I love how they turned out. There are times that I can paint branches and it just flows super easily. This was one of those times. My paint was being so nice. My paintbrush was behaving. Everything was working beautifully. I didn't have any brush strokes that I was like, ooh, I wish I didn't do that one. They were all exactly what I wanted. It was like, it was such like a magical little painting experience for me with how well it was coming together. And I hope that you guys agree. I hope that you're enjoying this as much as I am still enjoying staring at this painting. Because, man, I love this one. I just really enjoyed myself. There are some pieces that you love them more because you had such a fun time while you were painting them. That's this one for me. Honestly, a lot of my Fox and the Fairy series is that way. There are a couple that fought me, but for the most part, those have just absolutely flowed, and they're just, a little piece of my heart is in those paintings. And oddly, because this was a test painting, a little piece of my heart is in this little dragon. She turned out so well, and she just flowed. And that made me really happy. So at this point, I'm just adding little details. I'm just finishing up her face. So she needs some little horns on her face, of course, because dragon. And I'm doing the same color as that brown for her branchy horns. And then I'll mix some brown and green again. I'm getting a much darker color than I did for the, what are they called? Wings. Just to give a little highlight on those branchy horns. Make them color match with the rest of the dragon so that she's got the right lighting on her little horns. And we are so close to done. She just needs a face. I had such a good time painting this dragon. I really hope that you guys love her as much as I love her. She will hopefully be a recurring character. She did take a while. She took 45 minutes to paint, so we'll see how often she recurs, but she will very likely be back. So I hope that you love her as much as I do. I will try a more challenging position next time, maybe. We'll see. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great rest of your week.